And we go again. And it goes, what's going on, Titans? Welcome back to another episode of Daily Titan Podcast, or DT Pod for short. In today's episode, we're going to be breaking down volume 118, issue number 14 of the Daily Titan student newspaper. In this episode, we're going to be going over a couple of stories, including one about a recent CSU NAGPRO policy. We're also going to be talking about a restaurant menu review. We're going to be going over a story about modesty culture. And we're also going to wrap it up talking about men's basketball. I'm one of your co-hosts and your layout editor, Kabeer Kansara, and I'm joined with
your other co-host and news assistant editor, Demiana Ghobrial.
Stay tuned, Titans.
And for today's top story, we have a news article about a system-wide policy that is being implemented across the CSU system. It was announced on November 13th, and it's called the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Policy.
Yeah, the policy looks to return any stolen artifacts or any artifacts being used for research at the CSU systems back to their respective owners of different Native American tribes. And it features a collaboration between the California Native Nations, the California Native American Heritage Commission, and various tribal leaders from around the state.
Yeah, and this isn't a new policy. It serves to replace previous campus policies that have not only been in place at Cal State Fullerton, but have been in place system-wide with a more uniform policy that would kind of expedite the repatriation process and kind of make the processes more uniform for all of the campuses.
Yeah, this policy replaces any of the individual campus policies and is being supported through different trainings such as compliance training, staffing, consultation, and infrastructure through an approved budget from the CSU Chancellor's Office of $3.7 million.
Yeah, some of the tweaks that came from this new system-wide policy were the addition of an anonymous reporting button on the NAGPRO website, as well as guidelines for how the campus committees, which is also something that's been outlined in the policy, the need to form campus committees that are going to focus on repatriation efforts, how those need to be structured. This is all according to the California NAGPRA repatriation coordinator, Megan Lonsky, whose interview is featured in this article as well. Another thing outlined in the new system-wide policy is the recommendation that campuses with over 100 remains or cultural items to have experienced and full-time repatriation coordinators implemented as part of their campus staff. And CSUF is one of the campuses with over 100 cultural remains or items.
Yeah, according to the most recent statewide audit, which came from June 2023, there are 8,300 Native American cultural artifacts and over 200 remains in CSUF's possession.
Yeah, and looking at that survey, that also was not the highest number in all of Cal States. There were some with hundreds of thousands of remains, but this is still a pretty sizable amount.
Definitely. And having a repatriation coordinator would definitely allow the school to make a more concerted effort in making sure that these artifacts and remains are repatriated properly with the right care. And on the topic of care, the policy also implemented what they call duty to care compliance. So duty to care compliance are requirements for the informed and prior consent from tribes and descendants to conduct exhibition, research, and handling in terms of anything related to these cultural materials. So making sure that they are represented well and also taken care of in their process of being repatriated.
Yeah, and speaking of exhibitions, the targeted artifacts and remains are not only those that are being used in museum exhibitions that the school has on location and has also loaned out to other museums, but it also targets remains that are being used for research purposes.
Absolutely. And on the topic of remains as well, the bill requires county coroners from all over California near the CSUs to contact the NAGPRA Commission within 24 hours if they discover remains that they believe to be those of a Native American. And in terms of curriculum, the change in policy is not expected to affect any of the Native American studies programs at CSUF. Yeah, considering that Cal State Fullerton already had a pretty similar policy in place, I'm curious to see what this will look like across other campuses that have differing amounts of Native American resources and remains on their campuses.
Absolutely.
But overall, time will tell as this policy is still new.
Yeah.
But I think we gotta go on to the next section.
I agree.
All right then. All right, we're gonna take a bite out of the lifestyle section and talk about a menu review that was written about the recently opened Korean fusion restaurant in Fullerton called Lotteria. We initially talked about this before when Daily Titan covered the opening of the restaurant, But recently, one of our staff writers, Abraham Montezuma, went and tried out some of their menu items and came back with a review for us.
Yeah, the menu review covered a sizable amount of the menu. I think most, if not all, of the menu items were included in Abraham's menu review.
Yeah, he included that they offer a total of 5 burgers, 2 rice bowls, 2 loaded fries, 2 specialty items that are under the Shake It label, and 1 sweet treat.
Yeah, as for the burgers, I think one of the most notable ones and kind of one of the most unique things that they offer is their bulgogi burger, which I think speaks to their kind of unique and like cultural twist on like the burger joint, because they are a Korean company. And then I thought that the Shake It bags were really interesting. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Shake It bags are hot items of food, such as French fries or Korean fried chicken, and they come with either onion or cheese seasoning in like different provided packets. So you would dispense the packet into the bag and then shake it up so you can get like sort of a cheese fry or like an onion fry or a cheese Korean fried chicken and whatnot.
I just feel like it's so cute. Like I think it's really unique when restaurants offer that kind of like interactive aspect, and I know that kind of like Lotteria's like unique twist on things, like as just as like its whole model kind of like attracted like a really big buzz in business, like when they first opened, like lines for like
500 plus feet,
crazy lines like outside before they even opened. And I think that like interest in the menu is still kind of like attracting people who like want to try something new.
Definitely.
For those who don't eat beef, Lotteria also offers a shrimp burger, which Abraham also included in his menu review. He thought that the flavor of the shrimp was like mild enough that it kind of tasted more like a standard chicken sandwich than an actual shrimp burger, which I thought was really interesting. I
would be curious to know what the texture on that's like after it's been cooked. He also talked about a bibimbap rice burger, which features rice as the buns of the burger instead of the classic sesame bun, and also features the bulgogi beef patty from their sort of flagship burger, the bulgogi burger.
The dessert, I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, this is their only dessert.
Yeah, but it's a cup of bingsu, and I am such a big fan of bingsu. Lotteria's bingsu includes an assortment of fruits, rice cakes, nuts, and like red bean paste, which I think is like a pretty good assortment. Abraham, in his trying it, thought that it had a sweet and satisfying texture, to quote him, and thought it offered like a good contrast from the savory food that is offered in the rest of the menu.
Definitely. Overall, how likely are you to go to Lotteria?
I think I know what I'm gonna eat for dinner tomorrow. Actually, I know what I'm gonna eat for breakfast tomorrow. I'll be there at 6:30 a.m. waiting for them to open. What about you?
I don't know if I'm really inclined to go, but it does seem cool. I think a lot of the food reminds me sort of like what you would see at like 626 Night Market and other things that happen in OC, like a lot of that fusion food and things like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like the rice burger sort of reminds me of like the classic like a ramen burger and things like that. But I'd be curious to see how the menu expands. You know, like only one dessert and like more of the Shake It items. The Shake It items seem pretty cool, like as a concept.
Yeah, I think so too.
Hi Titans, this is Jayden Lovelady, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Titan. Stay connected and follow us at the Daily Titan on social media, and be sure to pick up a copy of our broadsheet in the orange newsstands. And if you want more stories, check us out online.
This week's opinion, written by Assistant Opinion Editor Litzy Aguilar, is about modesty culture, specifically how some women who partake more heavily in modesty culture use it as a way to kind of dictate their own social value and weaponize that kind of measurement of social value against other women who maybe don't partake as heavily in modesty culture.
Yeah, the article focused on a couple different facets, both from social media and also lived experiences from various people. And it talked about how this trend has sort of been imposed and internalized, especially amongst Gen Z culture, specifically in the way it's been presented on TikTok. In an interview with an English professor, Lana Daly, they talk about the role that internalized misogyny plays in the way that women represent themselves across social media and the sort of perception they form around themselves in terms of their view from other women.
Yeah, the article opens up by talking about how modesty has kind of been used to dictate how women should dress and how women should act throughout history. Like, it's historically standards for how women should dress have like fluctuated with what society like deems as appropriate, but they have always been used to kind of control like the image that women create of themselves and how closely they like align themselves to modesty in some spaces is seen as like an attempt to become like a more classy or like more dignified woman.
Right. Historically, the benchmarks set that dictate what modesty looks like for a society are often benchmarks and standards that play into what men and what the patriarchy feels like are modest by their own standard.
Yeah, and what I thought was really interesting was how historically modesty culture has shaped how women should present themselves publicly, but with the existence of apps such as TikTok especially, but kind of just like everybody's like increased online presence, that like modesty culture has like permeated into like how women just like present themselves 24/7. Like, it is not just public spaces now, it's also how you just act in general, how you like portray yourselves online. Specifically, the example used in this article was that TikTok was a TikTok trend that circulated around Halloween, where some women were making the claim that that it was more, I guess, dignified to stay inside instead of like going out around Halloween, just out of respect for their future husband. And I think that illustrates perfectly the point that the article is trying to make about how women will use the choices that other women make that are not closely aligned to kind of the more traditional aspects of being a woman, like not going out late at night, not like dressing more like scantily, especially like in this context in terms of like Halloween costumes, and kind of use that to dictate like how suitable they are for like traditional norms that women have kind of been trained to like value, like align their own value with, like settling down with a husband or like looking for like an ideal husband. And this article makes the point and emphasizes that there is nothing wrong with kind of opting for those more traditional goals and like norms, but the problem comes from women kind of tying like their own respect or like a woman's inherent respect to how closely they're aligned with like modesty culture. Like, if they do go out late at night, or if they do dress like more scantily, or if they just like are not like traditionally modest women, they therefore should not be subject to like less respect than a woman who like kind of does engage in modesty more.
Yeah, one of the points that I found really interesting from the article was also how they talk about how modesty interacts with economics and the sort of pipeline used to play both sides of modesty culture, from the idea of being conservative but also being rebellious, in which clothes that are meant to be more professional or more classy are marketed through the lens of modesty culture, while clothes that are more revealing are marketed through the lens of empowerment, sort of playing both sides of what modesty culture looks like.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an interesting vein of capitalism where like usually like when you want to align yourself with like a certain like subculture or like aesthetic or community, like companies who have like come to be known as like kind of basics or foundations of that like aesthetic will like use that to market. But it kind of becomes more interesting when that like aesthetic is based off of like really controversial societal values like modesty and stuff like that. And something else that I thought was really interesting kind of on that note of like online marketing and just like kind of making those aesthetics or like values known online, Lana Daly, an English professor at Cal State Fullerton who was interviewed for this article, also had a really interesting point about how like kind of posting these trends online that promote ideas of like internalized misogyny make statements and like make it so that online posting is kind of a way to like virtue signal. Yeah. Her quote exactly was by putting it out on TikTok, like there as in like the people who are like interacting with these trends, making a statement about how they want to be perceived, like I am better, I am more virtuous, in her words. And I thought that was really interesting because it speaks to what I was saying before about how with like the existence of online presence and like social media especially, like modesty culture has like seeped farther than like how women are perceived in personal spaces. It's not like how they think. Like their values are also being like shamed for not being modest enough. So I thought that this article covered that like very beautiful.
Absolutely. I think that quote really sort of paints the picture the article is really trying to put across.
We're gonna pass it on over to our sports section.
Oh, and this is, I think, somebody different in the corner today.
You might be so right. I think we pulled someone off the bench for this one.
I know.
And that would be our sports correspondent and sports editor, Nicholas Wire.
Let's
my
go.
God. Hello, welcome.
Hello.
So
Long time no see.
Yeah.
I'm glad they gave you minutes again.
Is this what? I think this is my second time on the pod this semester. So
Wow.
Are you excited to be back?
I'm thrilled.
Okay.
I'm thrilled to
Amazing.
be back.
Can you tell us
We're
about the
thrilled to
thrilling
have you.
game of men's basketball?
Yeah, I want to talk about the team in general this season. They're very different than they were last season.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So if you look at any of their scores last season, they reached 80 points 4 times, and they've already reached 86 times this year in their first 9 games.
Wow.
Which is pretty telling. The other thing that I want to piggyback on top of that is last season, the most threes they shot in a game was 26 threes. That was the last game of the season. And they have shot over 26 threes in 5 of their games so far. So they are running and gunning, and they're just spreading out the court, and they're running fast, and they have plenty of guys that give offensive production. And I would say fans go out to the games because this is actually an entertaining team to watch.
Yeah, and how would you describe their like chemistry playing on the court?
I mean, they push the ball in transition, so they get rebounds and they go fast. And I would say offensively, chemistry is great, and that's probably the most fun thing to watch.
Yeah.
Defensively, their coaches talked about this. They're not always locked in on defense, so they also give up a lot of points, which is why they don't have a winning record right now.
That makes sense. What are they currently sitting at?
They are 3-5. So, talking about this team though, they're, like I said, they're going to be very entertaining throughout the year. They're just about to start Big West play. They play on Thursday against Cal Poly, and we'll see how that goes.
Definitely. What do you suspect for that matchup?
I would say Cal Poly. Anytime that you go into a Big West opponent, I would expect something different than the non-conference matchups. So Big West, it's just going to be more physical, and I could see it slowing down more than they would like because of that. But I don't know. I don't know exactly what to expect, but I'm excited to see how they match up in the Big West.
Definitely. And how would you compare this year's team to last year's team?
Last year's team was, well, record-wise, one of the worst teams that we've had. And I kind of outlined that a little bit, but they did not shoot a whole lot, and they did not score a whole lot, so this is a very different team. And they've gotten a lot of new players on the roster. And in terms of those players, one of them, Joshua Ward, he's averaging 16 points a game.
Yeah.
And he just led them in their most recent win over Pepperdine, which was this weekend. And they beat Pepperdine 83-69, and he had 19 of the points. So,
Yeah.
And then the other one is Ford Landon Seaman. He had 17, and he's also a new player on the team. And he's been doing great for them. So
Definitely.
yeah, exciting times.
Very.
Very exciting.
Let's go.
When is the next game taking place?
On Thursday.
On Thursday. Tip-off is scheduled 7 p.m.?
Tip-off is 7. Yep.
Wow. How did I know this? I think I outdid myself, and it might be time to call it for sports.
I think we need to thank our writer, Dominic Crenshaw,
Oh,
for providing such accurate information.
and how could I
Writer
forget that?
and
That's crazy.
photographer.
Wow. But Nick, I do have one question before you go.
Yep.
Now, I know you go to a lot of these games. I know you're a big fan of Titan Athletics as a whole. What is the best place to sit in Titan Gym?
Best place to sit in Titan Gym is, I would say, on the east side wall. Usually there's a lot of fans that sit there, and you get an experience of the music, and also just like the halftime show, they face that direction too. The dances face that direction. And so, every spot in Titan Gym, you're going to be able to see the court pretty well, but I think that's the best
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah.
Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. Cool.
Thank you for coming on over.
Yeah. So glad to be back. Thank you,
course.
guys.
We'll be seeing you soon.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And that's it for this week's episode of the DT Pod. Be sure to pick up a copy of the Daily Titan on campus or check us out at dailytitan.com to read the articles mentioned in today's episode. Thank you all for listening, and as always, if you like us, we love you.
All right, before you guys go anywhere, you know we got to get real thankful real quick. So first of all, we're going to give a big old thank you to our executive producers, Sergio, Gonzalez, and Jayden Lovelady. We're going to give another thank you out to our producer, Michelle King. And then we're going to toss some subsequent thank yous out to our assistant producers, Gizelle, Medina, and Raniel Santos. And we're going to follow that up with another thank you to Bijan Shoushtarizadeh for providing the music you hear in this episode. The biggest thank you we can muster goes out to all of you guys for listening and staying tapped in with the Daily Titan podcast. Please tune in next week and pick up a copy of the broadsheet while you're out on campus. Thank you.